Vicki Peterson played lead guitar and sang vocals for the Bangles. Vicki was also in the Continental Drifters and the Psycho Sisters, both with Susan Cowsill. John Cowsill is the youngest brother in the Cowsills, a family band who had a string of hits including The Rain, The Park, and Other Things, for which they received a gold record. John went on to play percussion and provide backing vocals on 8675309 Jenny with Tommy Tutone, and toured with the Beach Boys as keyboardist, eventually backing them on drums. Vicki and John also teamed up with Bill Mumy to form Action Skulls. Long After the Fire, an album featuring the songs of John's late brothers, Bill and Barry Cowsill, is a wonderful record. I was very fortunate to hear them play songs from the album earlier this year, and more recently had the privilege of talking with the happily married couple about their early years, the bands, the songs, and what went into making the album. Stay tuned for a talk with two of my favorite musicians, Vicki Peterson and John Cowsill. You're listening to Frets with DJ Faye. No lessons, no technique info. I just talk to people who play guitar. Stay tuned.
Hello, this is Vicki.
Hey, Vicki, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good.
Dave Faye, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, John? Well, Vicki Peterson and John Cowsill, thank you guys so much for taking some time to do this today.
No problem. Thanks for asking us.
Glad to be here.
John, I want to start off by telling you a story I think you'll appreciate. Being born in the late 50s and growing up in the 60s, I always felt very fortunate that at an early age I was exposed to a lot of great music in that period. And I would hear it on AM radio, was also buying 45s and even albums. But I had the 45s of Hair, and I had Rain, the Park, and other things. I had Indian Lake. But anyway, I grew up on this street that had a lot of kids, a lot of boys and girls, roughly the same age. And we all got along for the most part. But I remember us boys getting in this discussion/argument with the girls who were at the time were way in love with the Osmond brothers, especially Donnie. And I was like, nah, the Cowsills kicked the ass of the Osmonds. So it was all the guys, my friends on my street, we were in the Cowsills camp.
I love that.
And the girls were in the Osmond camp.
Wow.
Huh?
They were, and I didn't hate the Osmonds. I did like Down by the Lazy River. I was just, at a young grade school age, I was making a point. I was like, hey, no, just so you know, Cowsills are the way to go.
Oh, that's very funny. That's funny, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we were both in the magazines. Well, we were in there first, and then they kind of showed up after us. Yeah. A funny story is my brother Bill, we were playing in Disneyland, and George and Olive were in the audience, and they came up to my brother Bill and said, asked him, would you produce our kids? So Bill was one of their first producers who got them. They covered a song the Cowsills did, was Make the Music Flow, and you can find that in a video or somewhere. But Bill produced that, and it's just a funny story like yours, It's just, and I'm friends with Jay today and his brother Merrill.
Wow.
Just funny stuff. Jay's 1 year older than me, but we have the same birthday.
Oh, wow.
March 2nd. Very good friends.
So yeah, I was discovering a lot of music in both the 60s and the 70s. It was just me and my brother. I just had one sibling who's a couple of years older than me. He had great albums, all the Neil Young stuff, Dylan, Donovan, and of course we had all the Beatle records. And then in my 20s, it was, next thing you know, it was the 80s, and I loved the Bangles. I was way into MTV and 120 Minutes and the whole bit. So I just had the one sibling, and of course my friends who were all discovering music. But John, there were 6 siblings in the house. Your older brothers were into a lot of bands and artists, obviously. Was there like one big room with records, or did you all have your own collection of records in your separate rooms?
No. We had a family hi-fi big mono 15-inch speaker. And it's just, I'm still looking for one to have in the house. They're hard to find.
Nice.
My sister found one. And we listened to the Ink Spots, Mills Brothers,
yeah,
and early stuff that my dad and my mom listened to. But for me, of course, it was the Beach Boys were the first thing I really noticed in album form, because my brother Richard had those. And then the Beatles right on the tail of my Beach Boy-isms. So all my older brothers had the music, and we were playing it so early. I was 7 playing drums and playing all those songs. So I, like you, was in music at a very early age as well. And I was, learning them all as I was learning who they were.
Yeah. I had a nice mix. Like I said, my brother had some great stuff, 70s stuff, and my dad was really into jazz, like really good, even guitar-driven jazz, and I loved all that. But yeah, music around the house, it's the first stuff you hear.
My own first record I bought was El Paso by Marty Robbins.
Oh, yeah.
That was a good one. I like country because my aunt liked it, and I listened to that all the time.
Yeah.
So, little Jimmy Dickens and
it's great stuff.
Yeah, all great guys.
And Vicki, I know your late sister Pam, who I'm so sorry, I know she passed away quite a while back. Didn't she have a pretty huge record collection?
Yeah, she was the quintessential older sibling with the good music taste.
Right.
And,
like my older brother.
Yes, like your brother, exactly. I think we're very lucky that we had an older sibling to lead us on the way.
Yeah.
And Pam did have excellent taste in music. She loved pop music, but she also, would like your neighbors who were Osmond versus Cowsills, but she would decide that, no, it's all about the Dave Clark 5 and the Kinks.
Oh, yeah.
They weren't getting as much love as the Beatles and the Stones, so she decided it was all about the Kinks and Dave Clark 5. So she was cool in a lot of ways.
I love that. I'm a huge Kinks fan.
Yes.
And I should know this, but were there just the 3 sisters? Did you have other siblings?
3 sisters and 1 baby brother.
Oh, you did have a brother.
Who is still in it, because once you're a drummer, you're always a drummer. He's a fantastic rock drummer, but he also has great ears and is a producer, engineer. He's done the mastering on 3 of the Action Skulls records that John and I put out with Bill Mumy.
Okay.
He mastered the last 2 Bangles records in the 21st century. He's got a great...
And he played drums briefly with Red Cross.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yep.
So yeah, Vicki, unlike the girls on My Childhood Street who leaned more toward the Osmonds, you were a big fan of the Cowsills.
I was Team Cowsill all the way.
And of course the Beatles. I was born in 1958, so the Beatles were a huge presence in my childhood years. John Lennon was my hero.
Yes.
Yeah, and I know I've been bouncing back and forth between the very early years, but while I'm thinking about it, speaking of John Lennon, I, of course, loved all the Beatles, but with a lot of bands, I always seemed to gravitate toward the lead guitarist, even though I've always considered myself a rhythm guitarist who can occasionally play a solo if I really work at it or practice and rehearse. But I've been in a handful of bands over the years, and I was actually always quite content to be the rhythm guitarist. But so, of course, I gravitated toward you when the Bangles came along.
Well, playing rhythm guitars it's just, someone said there's no such thing as, there's rhythm guitar parts and lead guitar parts, but if you play guitar, you play guitar.
Yes, exactly.
So, as a young player myself, I was really more focused on learning enough to be able to write songs, because that's where my energy went first. So I didn't spend a lot of time on the foundations and the, scales and getting my technical ability up per se. So to this day, I still play kind of by sense of smell. I'm still kind of just finding my way around, what serves the song.
Gotcha.
So, but I loved players like George Harrison, who, in my view, serves the song. Obviously he was in a band and there was a lot of input from all the band members and George Martin, but George, he wasn't going to just, riff all over the place through the entire song. He finds the parts that work, and that's what builds the record. And I think that was my template.
Right. And he loved country as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, I want to talk about Plug. Plug makes it easy for you to purchase the personal technology you need at 40 to 70% off retail pricing. What can you get from Plug? Certified pre-owned devices including iPhones, Androids, AirPods, Macs, smartwatches, accessories, and more. I originally didn't even want an Apple Watch, but I got one from Plug and I love it. I wear it every day. Your purchase is backed by their unmatched 1-year warranty and 30-day money-back guarantee. One more very cool thing, Plug is dedicated to helping reduce e-waste around the globe. To date, Plug has helped save over 1 million devices from reaching landfills, and they're looking to double that number by 2025. Link to Plug Tech from the show notes, and check out all the great deals and savings on certified pre-owned devices. Plug Electronics. Check it out. Well, Vicki, you're an excellent guitarist and singer who also plays mandolin and I think bass guitar as well. Mm-hmm. John, I admire so much people like you who are multi-instrumentalists who are also great vocalists. I always regret that I didn't learn anything but guitar. I fiddled around with keyboards, but I never went anywhere with it. But I've pretty much just been a wannabe guitarist all my life. So I really, really respect someone who can play just all kinds of instruments. It's great.
I play them all just bad enough to tell you what I want you to play. I can figure out a lot of things, but I've only been playing guitar seriously for the last few years. And, once again, I'm a rhythm guitarist because I sing the lead part. But I'm enjoying that a lot. I play piano, but really, those are my two main other things other than drums. But I don't know. We just do it. I've always just done it, so we just do it.
Yeah. Well, with the drums, you were listening to the Beach Boys, right out of the gate, like when you're really young. So you know that stuff really well. So your time with the Beach Boys, you were playing, you knew what to play on those Beach Boys songs.
I did. I was their piano player for the first 7 years. And that was the first band I ever played piano in ever. And that was a learning curve. And then they needed a different drummer. And so they asked me if I wanted to do that. And I told them, well, no, but I got a list of drummers for you if you want another drummer, because I was enjoying playing piano and I could get a sub easily. With drums, it's not as easy. But they said, actually, no, you can either be the drummer or we relinquish your spot. We're getting rid of this spot. So I said, well, of course I'll be the drummer then. That's my first instrument. So, Scott Totten and I kind of took over Scott took over the musical director's seat and I took over the drummer's seat, and that kind of made the band sound more like the Beach Boys that we listened to on the records instead of the Carl Wilson version of the Beach Boys over the years, how it just kind of got away from them, I think. But anyway, that was really fun getting the drum seat and being able to play the parts the way the records are played, and I really enjoyed doing that.
Sure. Speaking of multi-talented, multi-instrumentalists, Paul Allen, who not only played quite a few instruments on your album Long After the Fire, he also produced and engineered that album, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, he did most of the production, and Vicki did some of the engineering as well. But Paul is a force to be reckoned with. Just one of the most talented musicians and producers. He's got ears that are just amazing, and he knows a lot about the business. And without him, we wouldn't have gotten this far. We wouldn't have pushed it over the finish line.
We would not have finished this. We wouldn't have
gotten it started.
Paul gets the credit for it.
We kind of torture him in this respect that we don't.
We weren't focused on making a record at the moment when this thing started. It sort of was a sort of synchronicity beginning to the entire project, with John and Paul being in the same place and deciding to make a recording of something, which then became the first song on the album, and then trying to sort of focus our energies on actually committing to finish the record was a lot. John was still touring. I was living in New York, sort of casually in a way, because it was not permanent. It was just sort of, I was staying there for a year. So our studio's in California, so it involved traveling, twice a month or more, commuting back to Los Angeles to record. And it took us a minute to sort of say, okay, we are doing this. And I think Paul was very patient with us and never let that go. So thankfully, or we wouldn't have a record.
Thank you, Paul.
How did you guys first cross paths with Paul Allen?
I was a Finnish carpenter, and I lived in the town of Ojai up in California, which is Ventura County. And I got a call from the local lumberyard saying, hey, there's a woman called and wants somebody kind of special to go look at this job she has. And I said, well, what's the specialty? They said, well, you'll find out when you go talk to her. They knew. So I went to the job site, and this beautiful woman comes out. And I always say that I was going to take the job anyway, just based on that. But she told me what the job was, and building some fences, setting some windows for her. She said, but the thing is she wanted her son to work with me. So Paul was 11 years old when I met him.
Oh wow!
and so for probably a week or a week and a half, I'm not sure of how long, and I don't really remember our conversations, but he was a very interesting kid. And it was funny because I went to a music store and got a new bass drum that I really liked. It was a Signia, which is a premier bass drum. Anyway, it doesn't matter what it was. And I forgot to take it out of my truck when I went to his house, and he looks in the back of the truck and he says, hey, what's that? I said, a bass drum. And he kind of looks at me like, yeah, I know, but what kind? And I'm forgetting that I was 7 and I played drums, but in my adult brain, I'm forgetting that. And I'm thinking, what does this kid know? And so we took it out, and he said, well, let me hear it. And so he said, it sounds nice and round. And I kind of laughed. I said, yeah, it does. He said, well, can I buy it? And I just went, no, you can't buy it. It's mine. I just got it, And so we went into his barn. There was another building on his property, and he's got an old beat-up drum set in there. I don't remember what it was. And he had this old K guitar that had a dog leash tied around it the wrong way. And so he says, I don't remember it exactly. I think I do because I've heard the story from him. But I made the dog leash be like a strap, and he had one string on it. We tuned it up so you could play it, and I don't know. And so then after that job was done, before that job was done, I turned him on to a youth group at a church where there were kids his age playing. And I didn't see him for another 20-something years, and I'm playing the Ryman in 2017, and I get a text from him, and I don't know how he got my number. I find out later it was from friends in Ojai he did a session with, and I go out there, and there's this 6'5", tall, handsome, leggy brunette. And it was Paul Allen, and we just became sentimental friends. I was touched that he searched me up. Why? And I still don't understand why. I don't know what the connection is, other than it was probably something memorable for him as a child. And anyway, we became friends, and he kept asking us, what do we want to do? And we're sitting at my house here in California, and I don't know, he's just an interesting, analytical kind of a human being, odd in a good way, and kind of looks at you, and he's got a solution for pretty much everything.
That's great.
And he said, well, what's something you want? I said, I'd love to be able to record drums in my studio without doing the Glenn Johns 3-mic setup. And he made that happen just like that. He knows his way around the gear. He knows how to get great sounds. He's just an incredibly, ridiculously incredible, again, guitar player, keyboard player, drummer, you name it, he can do it. He works with the Wooten brothers periodically, Joseph Wooten, and if you don't know who they are, look them up. They are outside the spectrum of playing music. You couldn't even count it in, but Paul can play all that stuff. Wow. And yet Paul can play the most sensitive, simple stuff. Paul plays what's right for the song. Another guy who's capable of doing that.
Yeah.
Just brilliant. And so that's the story with Paul.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey, Dave, didn't we see you in the store the other day?
Yeah, I'm always at Euclid Records. I'm either buying new releases or buying the back catalog of guests who've been on frets.
So, Euclid Records has been around since 1981. How long have you been with us?
I do remember the original store on Euclid, but I used to go to the store when I lived in the West End.
You also shop our website. We have our own shipping department to take care of our national customers, but you use our local pickup option, right?
I do. Local pickup's great. I can shop the website 24/7. Buy it, come into the store, pick it up at my convenience.
And it's free.
It's a pleasure to visit the store. 2 floors of vinyl and CDs. I love that upstairs with the jazz.
You know, we're a bunch of music nerd librarians. We are obsessed with alphabetizing and making it easy for people to find what they want and discover new things. Plus, we get to talk music all day long with 5 generations of music lovers.
Euclid Records also buys music collections, right?
We do. We have buyers in the store 7 days a week, and we can make you an offer for cash or in-store credit on what it is we can use. Wait, does this mean you're thinking of selling us your collection? We know it's a good one.
No, not just yet. I'm still collecting. I know you got to get back to work, so let's end with telling them how to partake in the Euclid Records experience.
You got it. We are open 7 days a week in Webster Groves, and check us out on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And you can browse and buy 24/7 at euclidrecords.com. We do ship worldwide, so no matter where you are, we can get the music in your hands. And we'd love to take care of your frets, listeners.
Well, it's such a great album, and you recorded in your current home studio. You guys have been together for like a couple decades and lived in several cities like New Orleans, New York, and now L.A. Is it Malibu where you are?
Yeah, Malibu Canyon, yeah.
Malibu Canyon, okay. Yeah, my brother, who I talked about, he and his family have lived out in that area for years, currently in like the Agora Hills, Oak Park area. But they had to evacuate when all the awful fires were getting out of control. Did that affect you guys too?
Very much so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had just moved back from New York just a few months prior to that. And yeah, the hills started catching on fire in December. And then there was the Palisades fire in January, which came very close to us. We
were evacuated for about a month.
Yeah, we were out for at least 2 weeks. We sort of stereotypically, we had been booked to play a charity event in Wisconsin that very weekend, as it turns out. So we were already kind of packed. We just added some extra things to the car and drove to the airport, went and played the event for Joey's Song, which is a epilepsy research charity that we do every year in Madison, Wisconsin in January. So we set off to Wisconsin and spent a weekend doing that, thinking about other things other than our house burning down. And we're able to come back to our neighborhood about 2 weeks later. And we're very, very, very fortunate that we didn't have any damage because we have many people we know in our lives who did.
Yeah, it was so terrible. Well, and before my brother and his wife and my niece and nephew, before they were where they are now, they lived in the Palisades for quite a while. And it's sadly that house that I used to love going to and staying with them in it's gone. Their old home in the Palisades.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, I'm glad you survived that.
Yeah, got lucky.
Yeah.
Yet again.
Well, during the course of your time together, the concept of Long After the Fire, featuring songs with John's late brothers, Bill and Barry, that was an idea you batted around a while back, like maybe a decade ago, right?
Almost. I mean, we have been thinking about it for quite a while, actually, yes, and not quite sure how to begin, and so things had to line up exactly how they did, which is often the case in life.
Yeah, Vicki and I have a lot of great ideas. We don't see a lot of them through, but we talk about a lot of fun things, and that's part of the fun of it. You know, it's like someday we're gonna.
We do some stuff.
I know we do, but I'm being like a real person here. And people do this all the time. You know, we should do this. You know, we're gonna move here. We're gonna live here for a while. Let's do this. Then you become 90 years old and you couldn't do any of them. You're just looking for that assisted living house.
That's not happening.
Where do you silence you?
No. we've already put that to rest. We've already done several fun things. We have more things on our planning list.
I'm just goofing.
Well, there are so many wonderful songs on the album. A couple that, after hearing them for the first time, I couldn't get them out of my head. I love "Is Anybody Here," which is very Roy Orbison-esque. Just gorgeous. "Don't Look Back." I went back and found, the original, which I hadn't heard in years, and pretty amazing that Barry wrote that when he was really young.
I know, right?
14 or 15.
Yeah. Just nuts.
Yeah. We shared a room. I was there when he was doing it.
Wow.
Yeah. I always was there when he's with the guitar and he's writing over on the other side of the bed, and I'm over there either with headphones on, listening to some Elton John music or just making faces in the mirror. He was more serious and in tune. I'm just a goofball. I'm an entertainer, and I'm a interpreter of songs. I write a little bit with Vicki and Bill Mumy when we did the Action Skulls.
Yeah.
I've dabbled in it, but I wouldn't call myself a bona fide songwriter. But musically, I can write songs, and melodically, I can write songs, but I'm definitely not a lyricist at all. And I haven't practiced that art and never felt the fire to do so. But Bill and Barry, and Bob, but we decided on the Dead Brothers music. And, like my brother Bill always had a band, and he always said, if it's not original, we only do dead guys music.
Wow.
And he would say that at the beginning of a night when he would play. He says, "We're only doing dead guys music, so don't ask for anything else." It's very funny.
Well, another one that just knocks me out, and I was so glad to be able to hear you guys perform it live, is "Come to Me." Yeah.
Where did you hear us?
Yeah, I was very fortunate to see you back in April when you played over at Venue on Main in Belleville.
Yeah.
I really love that place. Such a great, intimate space to hear music. It was my first time going there, and I was lucky to get in. I live in St. Louis, and, it's maybe an hour away, depending on traffic. But I noticed, social media, whatever, online, I saw that it was marked sold out, and I freaked out, and, I'm like panicking. I contacted Venue on Main, asking for a single ticket. And Connie, who's such a nice person, emailed me right away, right back, and said, "Dave, just show up around 5:30. I'll get you in."
So, that's awesome. Right. That's awesome. We love those people.
Yeah, we love it. We're actually headed back there in September.
Well, I know. I was just going to say, I already have my tickets. This time I'm taking my wife.
Oh.
Yeah, we booked 2 nights because of we booked 2 nights.
That's so great.
2 days in a row we're playing there.
Well, I'm the guy who showed up early during your sound check. I don't know if you remember that.
Okay. So then we talked then, because I remember somebody getting there early. I remember that.
Well, I was just not sure, you never know from St. Louis over there, like if Friday afternoon, evening traffic, I just was like, I'm not taking any chances. So I got there, the streets were bare. Nobody was even around. And I think it was more like 5 o'clock, and Connie had said show up at 5:30 anyway. So, I went up and I saw you guys in the window. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. So, and then she and her husband were like waving me in, saying, "Come on in." So that was very cool.
Yeah.
They're so nice.
So
yeah, that's a great place. It's so funny with that wall down the center, though, man.
Yes.
We were working both sides of that room. That was odd.
I happened to get a really good spot. Well, because I was there so early, but
you were early.
I wasn't affected by the wall.
If you're feeling down and out, and you're thinking you can't hold out, come to me, baby, now you can come to me, give it another try. If you're feeling that you're lost, and you're thinking has lost its worth, well then come to me, baby, now you can come to me, give
Hi, this is Vicki Peterson, and you are listening to Frets with DJ Faye.
Hi, this is John Cowsill, and don't fret. You're listening to Dave Faye on Fret.
Well, that was my first time meeting you, John. But Vicki, I met you a couple times years ago. Once when the Continental Drifters did an in-store at Vintage Vinyl here. And then, and then when you and Susan Cowsill played a Woodhouse concert. I was at that show too.
Oh, right. Okay, and we talked about that then. Okay, I remember that now.
I've got a great picture that either Rick Wood or I think maybe Steve Scariano took a picture of me, you, and Susan, and I love that photograph. And that was at the Woodhouse concert. So.
Oh, yeah, we love the Woodhouse series.
And John, you'll be in St. Louis very soon with the Smithereens.
Oh yeah, that's right. I will be.
That's coming up. I don't know if you forgot about that.
I gotta keep my band straight.
Well, another thing I wanted to mention about the album, and I'm not sure a lot of people realize or think about this, is that in addition to albums taking time to arrange and produce, I mean, there's a lot goes into an album, as you know, and so much goes into it. But even though Bill and Barry were your brothers, I understand a lot of time and effort went into tracking down like the publishing, and some of those albums by like the Blue Shadows and Blue Northern, they were released independently. So I'm guessing that wasn't an easy task to just, have that to your availability.
No, it was an unusual task, first of all, because it's the first album I've been involved in for a long time forever, that's been all covers. Often you have to, if you choose to record someone else's song, you need to, get the publishing, get a license to do that. This album was completely covers, obviously. And so there was a lot of footwork involved in tracking out some of these songs, as John pointed out, were written decades and decades ago. And even the song that was recorded by the Cowsills, weirdly enough, which exists on a vinyl record that I have, that you have, that that it was actually produced and put out into the world. That was one of the toughest ones to track down, publishing-wise, weirdly. But yeah, we spent quite a bit of time on the interwebs and on the phone trying to locate the proper owner of the copyrights and the publishing for these.
Yeah, and hunting down things I didn't know about at the time. And thank you, Paul, again. And Vicki knew about this, but I didn't know what an IWRCS code is or whatever. But all the codes that go into the metadata that gets baked into the product.
Yeah, right.
I'm so old school. I had people do that stuff for us, I guess, So it was very much a hands-on situation. And you know what? Probably if I knew that we had to go through all this stuff we had to go through, I wouldn't have done it. I'm not kidding.
Well, I'm glad you didn't know that.
I know. I'm glad I didn't know, because I would have just thrown my hands up, because if it's not fun, I don't want to do it. And there's a lot of not fun in putting a record out for me, I've learned. And it needs to not stop. Like, I don't mind going doing gigs. That's the fun part, And anyway, blah, 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 blah.
But it's such a beautiful album, so it's great. Oh, Vicki, I wanted to ask, I've seen you play a Les Paul Custom, a Strat, a Daisy Rock. Do you have a favorite, or I guess that depends on whether you're on the road or in the studio? This is a guitar podcast, so I at least have to ask some guitar questions.
Absolutely. Well, she partially answered the question. It does matter, where I am. There's some guitars. There are a couple of guitars of mine that I don't like to put on an airplane, and one of them is my Stratocaster. And I have a Les Paul Custom that has been dubbed the Love Thing, which I've had since 1970. I think I got it in 79, but it's a 72, and it's had its neck broken 3 times. 2 times my fault, 1 time not my fault. And so that guy doesn't get to leave the house anymore, because it just plays great and sounds amazing. So, but I'm lucky enough to have 2 other sort of main Les Paul Customs that are very similar, had that same kind of a approach to the sound. And then the Daisy Rock guitar, which is a model that we helped design with Tish Cervello of Daisy Rock. And first it was sort of just a lark, but we made this guitar that is eminently playable and very versatile and very travelable. So that one often goes on the road with me now, these days.
Yeah, it's a badass guitar.
It sounds really good.
It's fun. It's got some tone.
Yeah, it's got little mini humbuckers, and so it's got some nice overdrive, but it has a beautiful little sparkly, clean sound as well. So it sort of serves the purpose that, we try to stay pretty portable. So if I don't have to bring more than one guitar, I won't.
And then she has a series of Gretches she likes as well.
Yeah.
Oh, a Gretsch guitar. My brother has a Country Gentleman. I don't own a Gretsch, but they're such beautiful guitars. They're great to play.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I have a country classic junior guitar. So it's got that sort of lovely sort of semi-hollow body tone, but it's smaller body. I had a guitar like that was actually stolen when the Bangles were in New Orleans, and it was taken from a warehouse. We were transporting gear back to California, and it was stolen from the warehouse. John was able to weirdly, freakishly find me another one that looked very similar. I never compared serial numbers. I don't think it's the same one. He was able to find one in a music store, just kind of one of those magical things.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, Vicki Peterson and John Cowsill, this was very cool. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedules.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yes, Dave. Thank you.
All right, and I'm looking forward to that September show at Venue on Main.
Yep.
Oh, we'll see you there for sure.
All right.
In Belleville.
Yeah. All right. See you guys.
Yeehaw.
Take care.
Thanks.
See you.
Bye.
Is anybody here to hear this song that I've been crying here all night long? This feeling's all alone. It feels so wrong. Is anybody here to hear this song?
Vicki Peterson and John Cowsill return to Venue on Main in Belleville this weekend for 2 nights, and you really should go if you're in the area. Remember, you can subscribe for free to Frets with DJ Faye at all podcast platforms and at YouTube, where you can find videos of live performances from Frets guests and me attempting to play guitar. It's goofy, but, fun. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned.
Where the people used to meet, now but never when the sun goes down. Can anybody see what's going on? 'Cause everybody knows the right from wrong. Oh, we could change it now or go alone.
Hey, it's Vicki Peterson,
And I am John Cowsill.
and you're listening to Frets with DJ Faye.
Dave Faye. Oh, that's better what you said.